Hi guys, this is Mariana, and today I'm going to talk to you about three thrillers that I would like to recommend. I'm thinking of sort of adopting this style every once in a while and give you recommendations of three books within a certain genre that I really liked. So please let me know if you like this format and if you have any suggestions of genres I could do this with. And since it's September and we're almost in the month of Halloween, I thought I'd get started with thrillers. So let's get started. So, the first book I want to recommend to you guys is actually by Stephen King, who writes mostly horror, but he has this trilogy called the Bill Hodges trilogy. And the first book, Mr. Mercedes, is a great way to get started not only reading Stephen King, but also with thrillers. It's a really good thriller. I've only read the first two books in the series, and the second one is a bit slower than the first. The first one is very, very fast paced, so that's the one I'm going to recommend. And the second one hints at the third one being a little supernatural-ish. So, but you can totally read the first one and be done with it. And it's called Mr. Mercedes. Well, Mr. Mercedes follows the story of Bill Hodges, a retired cop who, as it happens, is haunted by a case that he never got to solve. He worked back in the day in a case in which a guy stole a Mercedes and ran over a bunch of people who were waiting in line for an event at a park. And our cop tried to work out who had committed this crime, but he never got to solve the mystery of the crime. And this case haunts him up until that day. After retiring, Hodges sort of loses his will to live. He sort of lets go of himself, starts drinking too much, putting on weight, and he is very much in a depressive state until a certain day when he receives a letter from a person claiming to be the Mercedes killer and sending him a letter basically taunting him into committing suicide. It has, however, the opposite effect. Hodges finds once again his will to live. He wants to get done with this and finds in the letter pieces of information and bits of clue that he can use to actually try and capture the Mercedes killer once and for all. What's really cool about this book is that not only are you following the aspect of the investigation with Hodges piecing together all these informations, you also get to follow the side of the killer. Some chapters are written from his perspective, and Brady is some really scary motherfucker. Like, you are going to be terrified in his chapters. Stephen King has this way of writing absolutely terrible people, and Brady is one of them. So that's really cool. You get to see not only the investigation unraveling, like Hodges trying to figure out who committed the crime and stopping them before they do something new and terrible, and you get to see Brady reacting to everything that is happening and planning on doing something else. And yeah, it's just, you get to see who he was and how he became who he is, and it's so interesting. It will keep you turning pages up until the end. It's really, really cool. The next book I want to recommend to you guys is Into the Water by Paula Hawkins. Paula Hawkins is the author of Girl on the Train, and I didn't like Girl on the Train much. I thought it was just a bit too meh-ish, you know? All the characters are very unlikable and you have a hard time caring about anyone. But Into the Water is a huge improvement on her writing, and I found it to be a very, very competent thriller. It tells the story of a woman who has a sister, and they're very estranged. They haven't talked to each other in a long time. And the sister of hers calls her one day. We don't know why they're estranged. She calls her one day, and the sister doesn't pick up. And it isn't until the next day that she receives the news that her sister has killed herself. So she goes back to her hometown for the funeral of her sister and to take care of her niece, who's still a teenager. But the thing is that the surviving sister knows that the sister who just died would never have committed suicide, that it was very much not of not fitting to her personality, and she wants to find out what happened. She thinks her sister was murdered, and she is also terrified of finding out what happened because her sister killed herself in a place known for murder and suicide in the city. A place in the river. I think it's like the River Point or something like that. And digging into her sister's story means digging into a lot of the story of the town itself and of its inhabitants. And it sure starts showing once she starts digging into the stuff that she is getting on the nerves of a lot of people around. It's very, very interesting. It's also a page turner, and most importantly, it's more than just a story. Like, you could write the same story and it would be completely forgivable, but Into the Water actually manages to turn a thriller into an investigation of misogyny and of the role of a woman in society throughout decades, and it's just really, really good. Like, I very much recommend it. The third book I have to recommend to you guys is Bird Box by Josh Malerman. This is a bit thriller, a bit horror or sci-fi. It's a bit, it defies genre a bit, but it tells the story of a woman who is living with 2 children. And from very early on in the book, you can tell that they all can't open their eyes once outside the house. And they're living alone in this place. And it's basically, do you know how in these post-apocalyptic novels, people are living out of canned food and they have to store water and all that stuff? That's basically it, but you don't know what happened for them to be alone. And the author alternates between this timeline and the past, in which this woman doesn't have these children and she lives in a big town, and how things developed so that she would be in the situation in which she is now. So you're following 2 timelines, and it's this woman with these children trying to get away from this house in safety, and the other one explaining why they are in this situation and why it's so difficult for them to get out. It's really, really interesting. It's a bit violent at times, but it's a very short read and a very interesting one. The ending is a bit polarizing. Some people very much hate it. I like it. Like, it's not a very, very closed ending. It doesn't give you every single answer you could possibly want. So if you're one of those people who really, really need to know everything that happened, maybe skip this one. But if you don't mind that, then I highly recommend this one. It's very fast-paced. It reads like fever, you know? Like, you just need to find out what's happening. You need to find out what's going on. And it's sort of desperate. It reminded me, actually, I read this before watching A Quiet Place. I think it's A Quiet Place, right? The one with the people who can't make a noise. And it's basically the same, but people can't see. They can't open their eyes. And every time you are deprived of a sense, you have to develop all these different abilities, and the book is very inventive and creative in showing just which repercussions would come from such a situation. So that's it for my 3 recommendations. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please click the like button and make sure you subscribe. And if you're a scaredy cat, I have a video just for you. I'm going to record very soon a video with thrillers, sort of thrillers, books that you can read to get in the mood for Halloween if you're too scared to read actual thrillers. So make sure you subscribe to watch that one. Okay, bye!